I think we'll get started since it's like 10:05. So yeah, today is just going to be nutrition mostly. There's so many things I wanted to talk about today, like sleep and stress and exercise and how it all plays in. I'm going to try to keep it nutrition focused. All right. One thing I ask is that just try to keep your questions to the end, but if I do ask your questions, feel free to give them at that point. Otherwise, we'll just kind of like go over them all at the end, okay? So if you have a question, write it down. There's some good space on the back of the sheet, and then we can just retouch on it at the end, okay? So what I'm hoping you get out of today will be, the main takeaway will be clarity kind of around your goals and what you're trying to achieve and how that applies to like your why or why you're trying to achieve it. What it will take to get there, a solid understanding of how weight and fat loss work, basically like the learning or the knowledge portion of it, and then to be able to take away some tools you can use for the longevity of your challenge or the rest of your life, basically. Okay, so that's kind of that's what we're hoping to get out of it. All right. So just starting off, this isn't on the sheet or anything, but the main thing we want to talk about just to start is a mindset. All right. So have you guys anybody heard of like a fixed versus a growth mindset? Yeah, a little bit. Okay, so fixed mindset, you think that things are solid, set in stone. Growth mindset is very much like you can learn, you can be adaptable, you can change. And that's going to pertain to diet in a certain way, but just keep in the back of your mind that a growth mindset, especially around food and learning things, is going to be what you want to kind of adopt to be able to take failures or take learning opportunities into like a positive realm rather than such a negative realm, okay? So we'll touch back up on that a little bit, but I wanted to intro with some mindset stuff. All right. So first off, diet. Who thinks that a diet is like keto or vegan or something like that? That's typically what we think of when we think diets, right? Yep. So diet is actually, the definition is what the foods are that you habitually eat, okay? So it's going to help you if you start to think of diet as your own thing, not necessarily a structured thing. It's something that you kind of create, and it's what you will typically habitually eat. And it does not inherently mean restriction. It doesn't inherently mean weight loss or starvation or some of those negative things that kind of come with a diet. All right? So try to dissociate those two things in your head of I'm on a diet or I'm on like a plan to lose weight. Those are different things. All right? Your diet is just how you're eating at any given time. Okay? All right. So briefly, I will touch on exercise a little bit. All right. But diet versus exercise for weight or fat loss, okay? In this context today, weight and fat loss are going to be the same thing, essentially. But what we're going to basically differentiate is how exercise plays a role in that. Diet is essentially the number one way to manage or alter your weight, okay? So exercise is great. There's lots of good benefits of exercise. But if you want to change weight or if you want to change certain things about your body, diet is going to be probably the main way that you're going to get that done. All right. Your body composition, however, which is fat mass versus fat-free mass. So fat-free mass can include like bone, muscle, ligaments, tendons, organs, all that sort of stuff. And everything else is kind of considered fat mass. That's called your body composition, and that's what really changes with your training. Okay. So how you're working out, if you're doing a lot of things that are catabolic or anabolic, meaning are you building muscle, are you losing? Are you trying to break things down? Or are you trying to build things up, essentially? So weight training is typically going to build things, and things like cardio is typically going to break things down. Okay? Just briefly. All right. So moving on to benefits of exercise. So we'll just touch on this a little bit. Again, fat-free mass. With exercise, you're typically increasing your fat-free mass. You're gaining muscle. You're making stronger bones. Okay? All this can play into weight. But essentially, the benefit of increasing your fat-free mass, your muscle, your bone, your tendons, strength, all that sort of stuff, will increase your daily energy expenditure, or your daily calorie expenditure. Okay, so if you're a person that typically burns like 1,500 calories, you build some muscle, you might end up burning 1,700 calories, 2,000 calories, etc. If you think of people like Michael Phelps or The Rock, or these are really extreme examples, but they've got a lot of muscle mass, and those are people that have to eat 5,000, 8,000 calories a day to keep up with what they're burning, okay? So it's crazy. That's a very extreme example, but that's the general trend that you can achieve by adding like some fat-free mass to your body. Okay. Not only does it just do that nice portion, but it also keeps your bones, joints, and ligaments and tendons healthy long term. Okay, so the more strength, the more you're able to stay healthy long term, especially as you age. All right. Other benefits is it can increase your mood or increase your happiness. It increases your energy. It'll increase your brain health, your brain performance and your memory. It'll also increase like sleep quality. Decrease risk of some chronic diseases, so some stuff with like diabetes. It'll improve insulin sensitivity. It'll improve cardiovascular fitness, so that's basically decreasing your risk of cardiovascular disease. Body composition again, so back to the fat-free mass stuff. Decrease in blood pressure, blood lipid levels, regulation of hormones, that sort of stuff. So lots of good benefits to exercise. Dissociating just from weight loss. Okay, weight management can help, or exercise can help with weight management, but it is not a main function of the exercise that you're doing. Okay, increased self-esteem, increased confidence, increased function. All these things are great. Okay. Before we move on, just real quick, I'm going to have you guys look at the nutrition seminar sheet, the first sheet that you guys have. And we're going to start with the intention for today. So what are you trying to get out of the nutrition seminar, or what do you hope to gain from today? And this is just reflective for yourself. So whatever your intention is, or whatever you'd like to get out, it's totally personal to you. And I'm not going to ask you what it was today or anything. So, need a pen? Okay, good. All right, so set your intention. What do you hope to gain? It could be, knowledge. It could be a tool to use in the future. It could be you have a question you want answered, all that sort of stuff. So give you a minute to do that. As you're working on that, some of you might have already started the goals portion, but what are your primary fitness goals? So write down, 1, 2, or 3 things that you hope to achieve with your fitness, or things that you're working on at the moment, whatever that may be. And then very important is the below portion of the goals. You want to tell us why you want to achieve these. So figure out kind of what the driving force is behind that individual goal. Little man want to play with a kettlebell or anything? Get him started young. This place is not very kid friendly.
Are we moving on or stopping at goals?
Oh yeah, stop at goals, please. Yeah, part 2 will be later.
Trying to be a good student.
Yes, you're doing great. Guide me through my first presentation in 8 years or 20 years, however long it's been. Have you guys heard any fitness rules or nutrition rules that you want to maybe get clarified today about if they're real or not, or if they hold any kind of validity or anything? You can just shout them out if you want. I've got a few that we hear a lot written up here. We're just going to kind of do like a truth versus myth thing, see what we think and see what's real. So if you have one, let me know. Otherwise, we'll just go through these ones. All right. So the first one, I hear this a lot. Carbs are bad for you. Does anyone think they're myth or truth? So let's go myth first. Myth. Okay. So majorities are on the myth side here. All right. That one is actually a myth. All right. So carbs have a certain role for you. They are not inherently good or bad. They are just a function of your diet. Carbs are typically great for energy, for recovery, for holding, they hold water in your body, so they're good for hydration levels and that sort of stuff. But they are not inherently bad for you, so carbs do not make you fat. Carbs just give you basically good energy. Okay? So that is a myth. Check. Fats are bad for you. Myth? Myth. Okay. So, yeah, we'll say myth there. Fats are not inherently bad for you. Fats are high in calories. There are certain fats. Trans fats are really the only ones that are inherently bad for you. Those are the ones that are like processed and are in a lot of junk foods. But every other fat, there's lots of different types of them: mono, unsaturated, unsaturated, all those sorts of things. But they all have a certain role in your body. They're all very helpful for you. They typically regulate hormones, which is a big thing, especially if you're trying to lose weight or if you're trying to add mass to your body, whatever it is. Fats would typically have a pretty heavy role in that, and so you do want fats in your diet. They are not inherently bad for you. That is a myth. Good job, guys. All right, eating late at night is fattening. So a lot of people will try not to eat after 9 p.m. thinking that it's bad for them or fattening for them. So myth, truth, true, 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 true. Okay, that's good to know. So eating late at night inherently is not bad for you. So what is happening typically is eating late at night, you are right before bed, you've usually stretched your day a little bit. So you might be having like a fourth or a fifth meal if you usually have 3. So this is usually extra calories in your diet, okay? And the extra calories is where this is coming from. It is not so much eating late at night is what's bad, it's the number of calories in the day. And typically if you stretch your day, you'll eat a little bit more, which is why sleep is, I have to talk about sleep. Sleep is a little bit important. So for that side of things, obviously you recover in your sleep. So all the training you're doing and all the fitness things that you're working on, all that translates if you're sleeping well, right? If you're not sleeping well, it doesn't translate as well. So that's where all the recovery and the gain happens, is from your sleep. But on the flip side of that too is if you're not sleeping, you're giving yourself less of a chance to recover, and you're adding possible calories to each day. Okay, so it's kind of a two-edged sword where you're not recovering, you're not seeing the gain from your workouts, and you're adding in extra calories typically. Because if you're going to spend another 4 hours awake, you're going to get hungry again, and that's totally normal. But that one is actually a myth. All right. The next one. So, is there any questions about this so far? No, I think it's making sense. All right. Eating 5 to 6 meals a day will stoke or increase your metabolism. Truth? True? True? No idea? Yeah. So kind of the same thing as this one. 5 to 6 meals a day it doesn't really change your metabolism, but what it does is it gives you frequent eating patterns that are typically easy to adhere to. But someone trying to lose weight can do so with 5 to 6 meals a day, or with 2 meals a day, or 1 meal a day. It doesn't necessarily change your metabolism, but it changes how many calories you're eating, and that can be a very individual thing. All right? Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. So this isn't inherently true. This is more of a tool you can use. We'll go over that more in a minute, but this is essentially an example of a tool that you can use to manage calories.
I'd always heard that it helps your metabolism because you're eating smaller meals, and that way your body's able to process them better than large meals.
Right. So as far as processing, it might have a small effect on the amount going through your system, but it might be pretty negligible as far as total intake, total absorption in your body. But to your point, if this is very manageable for someone, so if I need to eat 1,500 calories a day, and I can break it into 5 meals of 300 calories, that's a great plan for that person to be on. But if 5 to 6 meals a day turns into each meal is 500 or 600 calories, it's not a great plan for that person to be on. So it can be either or, depending on kind of what your preferences are. This should be starvation mode exists. All right. So is it true that starvation mode exists? Has everyone heard of starvation mode? No. No, it's this idea that you can eat so little or be so in the deficit that you start to gain weight. So, has anyone heard of that before? Oh, that's good. Okay, cool. So I'll just jump ahead. This is a myth. All right, this doesn't exist. Back to that same rule, calories rules all. So you can't really create what isn't, like you can't create from nothing. So with starvation mode, if you're not taking things in, you are actually not able to create more mass in your body. Okay, it's not just gonna come out of nowhere. The biggest example is like Holocaust stuff. If people in starvation camps or concentration camps were starving, they were actually losing weight. But in like modern times, people are usually like using this as an excuse where it's like several days are in a severe deficit of almost starving, like very minimal calories. But then on the flip side, what we don't realize is that Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we're like binging almost, and we're eating a lot of calories, and that's where the weight gain's coming from. Even though 4 to 5 days of the week, these people were very, very low on calories, but they just didn't realize how many calories were in the other day of their week. So yeah, that is a myth. All right. Any questions so far on this stuff? No? Okay. All right. This one's tricky. There are good foods and there are bad foods. True? True? Okay. There might be some feedback on this. So, good foods and bad foods. Tell me what you guys think of good foods and bad foods. Because I have an idea in my head. There's probably a different idea out there. But if you could boil down what a good food is, like give me some examples. Good foods. Vegetables. Non-processed. Okay.
Whole foods?
Whole foods. Okay, cool. So there are, and I would probably reframe this as nutritious and less nutritious foods. But we don't like to see things as good or bad foods. You don't want to think of it that way because, again, of that growth mindset. If you think of foods as bad, you're setting yourself up to be bad if you eat bad foods. Okay? So if you think of foods as nutritious and less nutritious, you're gonna see yourself as developing rather than being like stuck in a mindset of like right or wrong, right? You are correct. There are foods that are less nutritious, things like cupcakes and pizza and all that's not going to get you where you want to go. Those are less nutritious foods, and exactly what you said, the more good foods are the more nutritious foods, things like whole grains, vegetables, fruits, lean meats, that sort of stuff. Absolutely. Okay, you need to detox or cleanse your body. Truth? Myth. Everybody's on a myth here? Okay, good. This is a job of your liver and your kidneys. If you are in a place where you feel you need to detox or cleanse your body, you've probably just been eating a lot of processed or junky foods, and you feel bad, and then when you do a cleanse, you typically remove that from your diet and you feel a lot better. That's more of the function of the detox or the cleanse than it is so much of what you're actually putting into your body with one of those. And these can be slightly dangerous. They're very, very low in calories. They're essentially almost a fast in some cases. Where fasting you want to really do, especially if you're doing it for more than just 1 day at a time, 3 days or 5 day fast, you're going to want to do that with the oversight of a doctor. Okay? And that's kind of like the problem with these, they'll be like almost a 5 day fast with a detox, and people just come out of those feeling horrible. And then weight comes back on and everything is ruined because they were bad. Okay. Calories are king for weight or fat loss. Myth? Truth? True. Awesome. Calories are king. It is not so easy and it's not so simple as just calories are calories. But in the end, at the end of the day, like with the starvation mode thing, calories come back around and you see kind of the general trend. They will always tell the truth about where the balance is. Okay? Sugar is inherently bad for you. Myth? Myth. Okay. Just like everything, sugar is best in moderation. So it's not inherently bad for you, but a lot of sugar is pretty bad for you. So you want to keep it very, very moderate. And I think just to relate everything back to the bad foods thing, if you see sugar as bad, you'll see yourself as failing, and you want to basically create as much momentum as you can. And if you have sugar, it's okay. Just keep it in moderation, and it's going to be all right. Okay. Last one, restrictive eating typically leads to regain. Truth? Okay. Yes, so typically what we see is the more restrictive people are with their diets, the more it leads to failure first, inconsistency, and then regain in the end, okay? So if you're being overly restricted with your diet and you're saying, I'm only gonna eat good foods, only gonna eat like this way for a whole month, you're gonna come out of that, you're gonna feel restricted, you're probably gonna end up eating all the foods that you didn't have, and you're gonna feel bad because you failed, and then you're gonna give up, or you're gonna be inconsistent, and you're gonna start to see this flux in what you're trying to do, weight loss or whatever, and then you just will get discouraged and the cycle continues, okay? So we wanna try to avoid restrictive eating, all right? Is there any that I missed that you guys like remember or you've heard and then you wanna kind of get cleared up? No? Do you have any more than that? Alright, right on. Okay. Alright, so let's switch gears a little bit and talk about your metabolism. Alright? So everybody's got one. Oh, yes, what?
I do have another myth.
Yeah, you want me to write it up?
You don't have to write it.
Okay, what you got?
But I guess I've heard a lot of it, and you kind of touched on it a bit too, is like people feel like you can just, like you can ruin a fat loss phase. Can you speak on that? Like how can you just ruin that?
How can you ruin a fat loss phase?
How can you ruin that?
Are you talking like a chunk of time and you can ruin it?
Yeah, so people are like on their journey of weight loss, trying to lose weight, and they're like, oh, I totally screwed it up. Like now it's almost feel like it's impossible.
Ah, right. Right. So they hit a point and it's like, screw it. Get off track.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Get off track and it's ruined.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like ruining your progress or ruining the momentum that you have, no, it does not exist. All you have to do, if you feel like you've ruined it or you've done something bad, which we're trying to avoid, if you've done something that you think has gotten you off track, the only thing that matters is you get back on track. So we're going to stay consistent, and even if you have little slip-ups where you maybe are deviating from your plan or whatever you're trying to work towards, if you deviate, get back on track as soon as you can, and that's all that matters, okay? You can't really ruin it, you can't fail. All that matters is that you don't give up, you don't quit, all right? That's really the main thing you need to do, just not give up, okay? Good question, D. All right, your metabolism, it's made up of 4 things, really. The first one is RMR, which is your resting metabolic rate or your basal metabolic rate. This is something that you burn if you guys like didn't do anything all day. So your body has to do its daily functions. Cells have to repair and all this stuff that goes on every day. That's about 60% of your total energy that you use on a daily basis. It's just living, like not even moving, okay? These two, activity and what's called NEAT, it's short for non-exercise activity thermogenesis. It's just like fidgeting. Anytime you like look up from your paper or anytime you like scratch your ear or whatever you do, every little thing adds up to about 20 to 30% of the rest of your daily energy expenditure, okay? So right there we've got about 80 to 90%. The rest is made up of your digestion, which is the thermic effect of eating, okay? So your digestion actually takes some energy to do, all right? So that's why you might have heard, if you eat celery or something, you can lose calories, like it's like a -5 calorie. That, I don't know that that's totally valid, but the concept is true. If you eat something that has almost no calories, it's gonna take a certain amount of energy to digest it, and then that whole concept of digestion taking energy, that's real, okay? So that's about 5 to 10% of your daily energy expenditure. All this makes up what you call your metabolism, okay? And that's just equal to your calories out. That's what that is, okay? So on a daily basis, you will have a set number of calories to burn, and it slightly fluctuates based on your activity and your NEAT, but those are not a huge, again, those aren't really huge factors in how much you're burning on a daily basis. It is more based on your resting metabolic rate, okay? And this is kind of a reason why we always trace things back to the diet, is because it's hard to account for how much we're doing activity-wise. That's gonna create a like a caloric effect here, and it's easier to figure out your baseline and work from there, okay? So just to clarify a little bit here. Yeah, adding physical activity is great, and it's really purposeful as far as like improving your body and all those other effects of exercise that we talked about. But as far as chasing like a caloric deficit, which is the way to lose weight, you need to address your diet rather than do so much with physical activity. Okay? So the reason being, there's kind of a twofold thing that happens. When you start to exercise a lot and try to burn more calories without addressing your diet, you typically kind of burn the candle from both ends. The first one is the increase in activity will lead to a subsequent increase in hunger and can create a very large deficit in energy. Okay? So if your activity jumps way up because you started doing cardio 5 times a week and you work out 3 times in the weight room 3 times a week, and sometimes you go to like a bar class with a friend, and sometimes you do title boxing, whatever it is, you just added a lot of exercise and you jumped your metabolism, it jumped way up. Okay? And maybe you went up to 3,000 calories of burn a day. And then meanwhile, you're eating, which usually you were eating like 1,500 calories a day, maybe 2,000 calories a day. You're going to feel hungrier and you're going to try to match that. But when you're trying to match that, you're going all over the place. So you're going to be like, I'm starving because I just did all this activity. So you typically will eat a big meal and you're not really accounting for how much is happening. So you'll see a big spike in energy output and a big spike of energy input, and it doesn't really equate, right? You're trying to figure out, and why am I not losing weight, or what's happening, are you doing too much, all that sort of stuff. So that's burning from one end. The other side is the exercise itself feels unsustainable, okay? That's probably the bigger portion, is that if you go hard and you go 5 times a week cardio and 3 times weights and all this stuff on the weekends, you might get burnt out. And then after a month of that, you're like, man, I did all that activity and maybe I saw a little progress, but I'm just feeling burned out. I'm just tired. So you're burning it from both ends, and you're going to run out of that sustainability in the end. Because again, this is going to take a long time. Like some of this stuff can take months, years, etc. And if you burn out, that just means you're going to be inconsistent, and it's not going to be sustainable. Does that all make sense as far as activity and the burn on both ends kind of thing? Okay, so the main principle I've mentioned a few times is calories in versus calories out, and it's a law. Basically, there's no question about whether or not it works. There's just a lot of moving parts. Okay, so like you saw here, there's a lot of moving parts with activity, and with your food, there's a lot of moving parts as well. Sometimes things absorb differently based on your gut bacteria, all that sort of stuff. But as a baseline, you have to work from this. Okay, you have to be in a deficit to be able to achieve weight loss or fat loss if that's your goal. Okay, so for how long do you have to be in a deficit? 1 day, a week, a month, or a year? Short answer is as long as it takes for you to get to where you want to go. Long answer, as long as you can sustain it. Okay, so sometimes it's going to feel unsustainable if you go for months on end. Some of you will do okay for doing months on end. But basically, as long as you can sustain it and get to your goal, that's how long it's going to take you. Some people might progress, like they might see good results in a month. They might see it in 3 months. What works for you doesn't work for everybody else, and it might take longer for other people. Okay, so your progress is your progress, and don't worry about what other people are doing. Okay. So the rules for the deficit. More deficit is not always better. So like I said with the exercise, increasing that margin between your intake and your output or your expenditure is not always a good idea. Okay, I know it's, typically people think I want to be aggressive or I want to be like gung-ho, I want to go all in, but more is not always better because typically that leads to unsustainability or inconsistency. Okay, so what we typically recommend is trying to do just a little bit very consistently for a long time, and then you'll do better for your deficit. All right, like I said, consistency and patience. You have to be consistent and you have to be patient because it's going to take time. And if you're not consistent, you'll see fluctuations that are annoying and discouraging. But if you're consistent, you'll see steady progress in the way you want to go. Okay? Understanding what's going on. So part of the mindset, that growth mindset we talked about earlier, is that you want to try to understand what's happening. Okay? So if you're in a plateau or things aren't moving, you want to try to ask questions and figure out, well, why is it not working? Try to learn from experiences like that. Or if you start to feel like you are failing, try to change the frame and say, well, what am I learning instead? What can I take away and make this a positive experience? okay? So trying to change your mindset to be understanding and try to ask questions, engage, and judge from that rather than be so finite with, I failed my diet, or I'm just not making the progress I want to make, right? Tweak, adjust, learn, etc. Okay? Fourth rule is use your data, your tools, and your strategies that are suited to you. Okay, so I've mentioned it a couple times, like what's going to work for you is not going to work for you, is not going to work for you. You got to find your own, and you've got to use your data. So data can include all the measurements we take. Here, it can include all the benefits you see from exercise, so your self-reflection stuff. It can be anything. It can be pictures in the mirror, whatever you want. And then tools can be, we're going to go over tools next, tools and strategies next. But those are the things that you use that are in place that are kind of guiding you along how you're doing all this stuff. Okay? And then the last is practice self-compassion. So you've got to be sure that coming from a place of self-love, you don't want to guilt yourself. You don't want to bash yourself for messing up or anything. You want to do everything from a place of love and moving forward with positivity. Okay? Any questions on the rules? Just yet? No? Alright. Tools. Okay, so we got some rules, basic rules for the deficit. The tools, there's lots of tools, and there's not one that's better for the other than the other. All of these are just going to be individual based, okay? So there's lots and lots that go into all these tools, but the basic overview, we're just going to go over basic overview for them, okay? Kind of what we feel is the most reliable, but also can be the toughest one to do, is tracking your calories. So MyFitnessPal, those sorts of apps that you can put all of your food in, you get a number at the end of the day, all that sort of stuff. We feel that those typically show you the best results. You have a lot of data for the amount of calories you've eaten. You have a lot of data from weight and measurements and fluctuations and that sort of stuff from all this, so you can get really good idea of what's working and what's not working. Okay. Cons of tracking calories are that if you are slightly obsessive or you have that kind of idea in your head, it can be strict and it can lead to some sort of obsessive behavior with food. Okay. We want to encourage a healthy relationship with your food. So if tracking calories is leading down a dark road, you're going to want to cut that out. Okay. It can feel kind of strict at first, starting to track calories if you're inputting everything, and every day you're spending 20 minutes on the phone just looking up spinach and chicken and all that. It can be daunting and it can be a little annoying. That fades with time. So a little bit of encouragement is that it's hard up front, less work down the line, but it's really a great way to do it. If you guys are interested in tracking calories and finding your number that you're looking for, simple way to get it is taking your body weight times 10 to 12, and that'll give you a range of calories, okay? So if you're 150 pounds, this would give you 1,500 to 1,750, I think, if my math is right there. That'll give you a good range for your fat loss, okay? That would assume that your base level metabolism is 2,000, and that you're creating that deficit by going to 1,500 to 1,750, okay? Does that make sense? Okay.
And that's the body weight is your current body weight or what your goal body weight is?
Current body weight. So I didn't mention this earlier, but as your metabolism, or as your body weight changes, so does your metabolism. So you'll take your current body weight here to find your current metabolism essentially, but as you lose weight, this number is going to change, okay? So if you go from 170 to 150, you're going to lose 200 calories or so in your deficit, okay? Make sense? Okay, the next one, portion control. There's a good page in here in your packet with some images on these meals, these anytime meals or post-workout meals. But portion control is essentially looking at your plate and your different foods on it and just kind of eyeballing them and seeing and trying to manage your portions, okay? So with portion control, the nice thing is that it's very easy to do. It's just visual. So it's the barrier of actually doing it is very low, but it can be very inaccurate. You can look at a meal that can be 500 calories, and that same meal can actually be 1,000 calories. It's very hard to do, but it can be useful to some people. Okay. The next one is kind of like your fads. They can include diets or just eating techniques. So some of the examples are intermittent fasting, carnivore diet, keto diet, vegan, vegetarian, paleo, Whole30, all these sorts of things is what people think of as diets. Those are typically more of fads, okay? And what they are all very effective at is actually managing calories in a very simple way, okay? So I don't think they're inherently bad, but they are doing something that we're talking about with all of these things. They're managing your calories. So, for example, intermittent fasting. You guys are familiar with intermittent fasting or the concept? So, for one of the main ways that people use intermittent fasting is on a daily basis. They fast for 16 hours and they only eat in an 8-hour window. So, from 8 p.m. to noon the next day, they don't eat, and they only eat between 12 noon and 8 p.m. And what that does is just like the opposite of eating late at night. You remove a meal from your day by only eating like lunch and dinner probably, and maybe a snack in between. So if you remove a meal, most likely you're going to remove calories from your diet, okay? So that's how intermittent fasting achieves a caloric deficit, just as an example there. And then, if you look at carnivore or keto diets, those ones are basically no carbs. So what you've done is you've taken out a whole food group and you're only left with fats and proteins. So you've removed a lot of calories from your diet just from removing carbs. It's not anything crazy with insulin. There might be small effects on that, but it's really comes down to calories. Same thing with vegan or vegetarian diets. They typically remove very high calorie foods from your diet, so like your fat dense proteins or your butters and all that sort of stuff. And what they focus on is plants, which are have high volume and very low calories. So you can eat a ton of plants and fruits and veggies and stuff, but you don't get very full calorically. So you're basically creating a big calorie deficit just from not having like meats and cheeses and all that sort of stuff. If you guys have questions on like diets or what essentially would be a tool for something like this, you can ask us at the end, or you can approach us at any time during workouts or anything like that. Diet breaks. These are basically periods of like calorie deficit followed by periods of maintenance eating, okay? So if you have a deficit, like the example here is like 1,500 calories is your deficit, you would have 3 weeks, maybe just for an example, you would use 3 weeks of deficit. So you'd eat 1,500 calories consistently for 3 weeks, and then you'd go on a diet break, and you would go up to 2,000 calories and eat fairly normally for a week, and then you'd come back to it, all right? 3 weeks on, 1 week off, kind of thing, like intervals almost for eating. This is typically slower progress, but it's more sustainable, okay? So you can kind of offset that feeling of like this feels like it's taking forever. If you have little breaks in there, it can kind of be like little rays of sunshine here and there.
Sort of how like some people do like 5 days of low eating and then have cheat days.
Yeah, it's kind of the same idea as like a cheat day, but more so structured along like week things. Yeah, so a diet break in a week would look kind of what you're talking about, but we would say maybe do more like a month type thing. First 3 weeks is diet, and then the last week is like maintenance. Okay. 80-20 is probably one of my favorites. It's fairly flexible. 80% of your food or your eating will be very nutritious, and then 20% will be a little bit less nutritious. So you can kind of get the foods that you like into your diet, but you're eating a lot of foods that are going to help you along the way, all right, along your goals. This is based around calories, but it's very flexible in terms of the types of foods you're eating, okay? It's almost like that idea of if it fits your macros. If you have 30 grams of carbs at the end of the day, you can have a Pop-Tart or whatever it is like that. It's those things that give you like little pieces of hope in between of like not having to feel so crazy and only eating like just all the nutritious foods. You get a little bit of everything. Just the cons with that is sometimes it's slower progress and it's a little less restrictive. Okay, that's a positive. All right, questions about tools or anything? Yes.
That formula under the tracking calories,
Yes.
is that a formula designed for weight loss? Is that the deficit formula?
Yes, good
Not
question.
a maintenance formula?
Yes, this is great question. This is absolutely for a deficit. So that number that spits out there is creating a deficit of around 250 calories to about 500 calories. maybe you could do the research and tell me what the regular, like the maintenance calories would be. But yeah, this 10 to 12 gives you your deficit calories, okay? Basically what you would do is you would get your range, and if you wanted to go to maintenance, you would add 500 to 250 for your new range of maintenance. Good question. How's everybody feeling? Good? A lot of info? Yeah. Okay. Just some basic habits that can help you just like in the moment of a meal. Having 1 to 2 glasses of water before meals can help you feel a little fuller so that you won't eat quite as much at your meal. You can kind of rely on that satiety, understanding when you're full, if you have a little bit more volume in your stomach to start. Starting with protein and veggies and then ending with things like starches and carbs can also do the same thing. You kind of create a little satiety at the beginning and then finish with what you like at the end here. And then the last one takes a lot of mindfulness, but it's stop eating when you're about 80% full. So just kind of eating mindfully, chewing, understanding, the process of it, and then looking and saying, okay, I think I'm pretty satisfied, and being able to say you're done rather than finishing the plate or going for seconds or whatever it is. Okay? So those are just little habits you can start to practice with your actual meals. Questions? No? Okay. All right. How do you know it's working? So with all this stuff, you're going to want to try to track in some sort of way of whether or not it's working for you. But progress is how you're going to know. So biggest one probably is measurements are trending correctly. Now this is on a large scale. This isn't on a daily basis. I've kind of drawn what might happen. This is a weight or a body fat. This might happen on a daily basis. You might see spikes. You might see big drops. All right, but the general trend is going down. Okay, and this is one of the things that trips people up a lot. Is if you, for example, if you weigh yourself on a Monday, and then you come back the next Monday and you weigh here, you're actually up in weight. All right, but your trend has been down. Right? That's very discouraging if you just weigh once a week, or if you're just coming in and you do once a month measurements kind of thing. The weight can be a little bit different. So you want to look at the trend, and you want to look at how other things are going in your life as well. Some examples are if your clothes are fitting better, or if you're liking what you see, or you're seeing all or any of the benefits of exercise that we kind of went over earlier. On top of that, does anybody have anything else that they kind of see when they start to see some progress in the gym, or things that they're looking for? I'll add them up here if you guys have it.
So sometimes like weight plateaus.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is that you should just stay the course and try to get off that plateau?
Yes, stay the course. In a rare circumstance, the weight comes down and you might have to readjust like the amount that you're eating, but stay the course. Don't freak out. Just be consistent. Yes, absolutely. Great question. Because more than often, or more than not, what's happened there is you're in one of these phases and you're about to see that, but right here at that flat point, you're like, oh man, I'm not getting anywhere, and you'll change something, and then that's when this won't happen, right? So if you just stay consistent and stay the course, you'll see it. You'll see it. Great question. Any other stuff? Any things that you guys are looking for as far as like progress or what you're gonna see? Anything you can think of? I got some ideas if you don't. No? What about like your form has improved in the gym, or muscle definition, you're starting to see muscle definition, or function outside of here, like maybe, so I think somebody was bragging about carrying like all the groceries the other day. They're like, I literally carried all the groceries. More energy, more endurance, that sort of stuff. Sleep quality is improving. All these are like really healthy, positive progress markers, and they can typically go unnoticed if this one is the only one you're looking for, or you're only looking at. Okay? So look, expand the spectrum and see kind of everything that's improving about your life too. Okay? Probably the biggest one that I would say as far as progress is that your mindset toward food is improving or has improved. So trying to understand that everything you're working towards is a very healthy relationship with food, and you don't want to see it as bad, good. You don't want to see it as something that you want to avoid or anything like that. What you want to do is you want to try to foster that relationship. So your understanding of things of like, I can enjoy the foods that I like, I can enjoy it, I can do things that I want to do, all while seeing progress and all while maintaining like a healthy lifestyle. So I'd say probably one of the biggest ones we're missing here is improvement in mindset around food. Alright, little side note, despite what you expect, you should celebrate any and all the progress that you make, small or large. Some people have in their heads, I can lose 5 to 10 pounds a month based on this calculation and all that. If you lost 1 pound in a month, awesome, great job. If you stopped gaining weight in a month, awesome, you're making progress, okay? So take any and all progress and see it for a win, okay? And celebrate yourself. Give yourself a little self-love, right? Okay, so to wrap it up, big things from today are calorie deficit, rule number 1 for later fat loss. You've got to find a way to be sustainable, consistent, and patient with your eating. All right, track, and celebrate your progress. So figure out what's working and how you know it's working. And then the last one is you can do this. All right. Any questions? No? Yes?
So like on these little infographics, it says like keep fat consumption to a minimum after workouts.
Okay.
Like I always eat like half of an avocado and that's fat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And eggs.
Okay.
So is that bad and why would you want to?
It's a good question. I should probably update this. That's not bad. It's not bad. So in the whole spectrum of things, on a daily basis, we're looking at calories, and it doesn't matter so much if you eat it right after a meal, or if you eat it end of the day or whatever. If it fits within the calories, good to go. So if for you, this might have been a great rule for me, or maybe for Rock or Demetrius, whoever. But for you, if you like fats after workout, go for it. Go for it.
What are some of the foods that you would recommend to eat post-workout?
Post-workout? Again, not super important post-workout, probably more of a preference thing. Science tells us that protein and like carbs are good after a workout, but whatever's going to work for you to stay within these bounds of what we're working on. Okay, so if you find here's a good example. If you find that if after a workout you have a protein shake and you've got some like sweetness in it, so bananas and like you're doing the right thing. It's carbs and protein, right? But after you have that, you're like, God, I'm starving. And like you have a big meal, and at the end of the day you have another big meal, and then it ends up being like a big calorie bump. That wasn't the right choice for you. So it might be more of what Sarah's talking about. I have a high-fat meal after a workout. I feel really good for a long time, and I'm able to kind of manage my calories that way. It could go either way. It's just going to be kind of you figuring out what works for you. Good questions.
So the number of grams of protein a day.
Mm-hmm.
I hear different sides of this, that you might not need as many grams of protein. Do you have like a set in mind for a good,
A good like kind of range kind of thing. That's a great question too. There's science that tells you to maximize muscle building. There's a number. There's also the benefit of eating a lot of protein is that you're very full a lot, right? So kind of back to that keto and that carnivore diet keeps you very full. As far as an ideal number of grams of protein, I would say that there's not an ideal number, but for you, whatever works for you. So when you're in a phase of trying to lose weight or lose fat, you are essentially trying to do what works best and not what works optimally, okay? What works optimally means that you might stay on track 50% of the time, but if only 50% you're being effective, that means you're not going to see the results that you want to see. But if having less protein, because I know it's hard to get a lot of protein, if you have less protein, it means you stay on track 90% of the time, then you're going to see the results that you want to see. So whether or not it's optimal is kind of more of a personal preference. Mm-hmm. Good question. Yeah?
I'm using a calorie tracking app, and it's got sections for water and for exercise. Do I want to put those in there because that throws the calories off when you add an exercise?
Yes, okay. Short answer, don't put the exercise in. Just assume that baseline that you have is your standard goal every day. And as far as water, I just say drink enough water and you're good. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it can be a good reminder if you're not drinking enough water, of like, okay, I've only had 60 ounces today, I'm trying to go for 90 or whatever. But that is really just, that's data about water, not so much about calories. So, yeah.
So why wouldn't you put in the exercise for that if you were like doing some kind of athletic training and you like need to make sure you're,
You say, why would you put in exercise?
yeah, why would you put in exercise?
That's a great question. As far as like why you would put exercise in, people are gonna try to match, like they'll try to kind of like, if you say I did 500 calories worth of workout today, they'll say, oh, I can have 500 extra calories at dinner, right? But the problem with those is that you have no idea how many calories you burned in that workout. It might tell you 500, like your fitness tracker might tell you 500. It was 200. It might be 700. We have no idea. So it's better to just stay the course there and just let that exercise fluctuate and just do its own thing, because we really have no idea how much is really being burned, right? So kind of, yeah, back to that exercise of the metabolism thing. If you're trying to chase it from that end, it's kind of doomed from the start. So chase it from the intake side. Yeah, that's a great question.
To piggyback off of that, you mentioned tools. The Fitbit, is that something how is that useful?
The Fitbit, as far as calories and intake, it's not super useful. For getting things like steps and like keeping yourself accountable to like daily movement practices or heart rate or that sort of stuff, it's great. I think there's a fitness tracker out there that does, one of the best things is sleep and heart rate variability. There's one out there for that. But as far as Fitbit, you don't want to listen to the calories it tells you. It just is a good reminder to take a good number of steps every day, and then whatever else it's trying to tell you. But calories, not so much.
Yeah, I'd say Fitbit is good for, like the knee part that you're talking about. So steps are also, going to manage and make sure that you're doing more activity outside of this exercise. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
For calorie wise, they're pretty consistent.
Yeah, super consistent. Yeah. Cool. Okay, what's up? Yeah.
If you're gonna throw in cardio stuff at home or on your own time, like I mentioned, I ride a bike in my house. Is it better to run? Is it better to ride a bike? Does it matter? I mean, some burn more calories than others, right?
Right.
Like, as far as, like, what would you recommend as like something that you could do just on a regular basis?
Okay. So with sustainability and consistency in mind, something that works for you, that you enjoy, and that's not going to basically like narrow towards the end, right? So if you're starting to do the bike at home and you're finding it's like a chore every day, you don't want to do it, and more that you do it, the less and less you want to do it. When you quit, you've given up sustainability, you've given up consistency, and so you're not able to achieve the goals if you're not sustainable and consistent. So something that works for you, that's enjoyable, that you're going to be able to do for a long time.
So it's like a fun activity that you would do.
Yeah, it could be.
Regardless if it's like helping it.
Right. So I mean, there's a side of things where you wanna like work for your heart. You wanna like make sure you're actually doing some cardio for the heart. But as far as just an extra activity here and there, like we've got cardio going in here. You can do 1 or 2 outside for your heart rate. But if it's something that's just gonna stress you out and like pigeonhole you, then don't worry too much about it. But for health's sake, yes, doing a couple days of cardio is a good idea. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. You guys good? D, Brock, anything to add? Okay. Let's see, there's a part 2 of the seminar document here, which is just tools that appeal to you from the tools page, so I'll flip that back. And then how you're going to use those. So just so you guys can get an idea of maybe how you're going to attack this and how you're going to use those tools moving forward. Okay? So you guys can use that. You can do it now or you can do it on your own time. And if you have any questions about any of this stuff, always ask us for input or advice, or let us know if things are hard or aren't going the way you want it to go, or if they're going well, tell us all the time. We love that. All right?
Is it true that people say like you should eat right after a workout, like that time frame? Is that true?
It's like a very minimal effect, if any. People that would probably benefit really a lot from that would be really high-level athletes.
Right.
Otherwise, it's all going to be based on the daily calorie thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, if for you, if you come home and you have a meal right away and you feel great for the rest of the day and you manage your calories well, that's working for you. If I go home and eat right away and then like I'm just like ravenous for the rest of the day, maybe it's not a great idea for me. That's all comes down to you. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, yes.
Am I ever gonna lose this belly fat?
With this,
What
yes.
is it gonna take?
With this, yes, absolutely. Consistency,
I've lost weight, but it's like body shape has not changed.
right? Yeah, yeah.
Especially my age, so.
Well, typically, that's a good question. And typically, like the place that you want it the most is the last one to go. Well, it will, but it's the last one to go.
Because you're focused on it.
Maybe you're focused on it. Maybe it's what you want to see the most, or your body just kind of hasn't. It could be, yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And it also is maybe your body's like cruel joke is like you're doing it, but I'm gonna keep this one for the last.
Like you
Yeah,
said,
I-
you have less, so that's progress.
It's true. It's
Mhm.
true.
Absolutely. Right on. Okay. How's everybody feeling? Good about this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Questions? Concerns?
One more thing about the 80-20.
Yeah.
Can you just one more time go through it?
Yeah,
Kind
absolutely.
of got it a little bit, but what's the science behind it?
Okay. So 80-20, there's not really much science to it,
Yeah.
but essentially it's a good breakdown of a sustainable, flexible diet. So within this, you're still trying to manage calories the same way here, but with 80-20, you're basically saying like, if I do really well for these meals, I can kind of have some stuff sneak into the diet that's a little less nutritious. So instead of feeling like you have to go all out, so like for an example, all out on like a carnivore diet or like a keto diet is like no carbs. But if you were to go all out, it gives you that sense of restriction. This takes that away. So you're like, I'm able to have some things that I enjoy within the bounds of what I'm trying to do here. So maybe every 4 meals you're eating really healthy, nutritious stuff, and then on that 5th meal you're like, okay, I'll have like a slice of pizza and a salad or something, just to kind of slip things in that are a little bit, give you that like ray of hope that it's not so horrible. Right.
So it's not like a salad and pizza every meal.
No, I mean, you can kind of break it down however you want to, and you can look at this as like a plate, like a meal, but within the bounds of calories still. So like, if a slice of pizza gets you to 200 calories, the salad would need to be like 300 calories or so, like that. But you still get the pizza, so it's not restricted that way. Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, another example would be, this is going on someone who was tracking pretty excessively, but it had that kind of rule built into the tracking. So majority of the day, you're eating nutritious, high nutritious, less processed meals, but then at the evening, you eat a little pint of ice cream. That's that kind of 80-20 rule where you have a cookie or something like that. So the majority of the day, you're eating fairly healthy, but just at the end, you kind of treat yourself to a little snack. It's not that you went got a pizza or something like that to offset the other meals, but just this little something at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So that'd be like a daily look at it. So you're eating right through the day and you just have your little ice
Still
cream.
enjoy your life.
Yeah.
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 Have a little glass of wine, have a beer. That's what it looks like at the end.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Correct. Yeah.
So lunch with calories.
What's that?
I don't want to be like a
Wine.
vampire with a little
Wine.
sugar.
Yeah. So the big thing with drinking is more the calories.
Yeah, they say don't drink if you're not hungry.
Yeah, again, that feels pretty restricted, right? Yeah. So I think that the way that you want to maybe approach drinking would be to think of it like on a daily basis. If you're here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If you think on a weekly basis, if you have 1,500 calories a day, you have a number at the end of the week. I can't do the math in my head, but whatever number that is kind of where you want to hit at the end of the week. You can have some days where, if it's 1,500, you hit on Monday, Tuesday, you're a little lower Wednesday, Thursday maybe you're right there. So you've created a deficit on your first 4 days of the week. And you're like, well, I want to go out with friends, I want to socialize on Friday. So you might say, that's maybe a little bit higher of a day. Okay, so you might hit 2,000 calories that day. And then you get back on track Saturday, Sunday kind of thing. So you can build it in that way with maybe kind of mitigating some of it on other days like that. There's also the idea that if you're going to go have fun, you can go have fun, just get back on track the next day, whatever happens to you, right? Just be aware that if you are doing that sort of thing and you're way up here and back down, this could even out to basically like no change, all right? So it's just, it's something to think about, but like again, don't be so restricted that you end up quitting, right? You can kind of find a way to manage this in a range here with some tools like what I see some people do is they'll have very protein dense meals like the beginning of the day. They might have a protein shake before they go, and then they'll have drinks when they go out, but that way they're a little bit more full and they've kind of hid the nutritional side of things that way. And then this can come down a little bit because they did all that, so they're not snacking on things or they're not like wanting the late night pizza or whatever it is. But you can do that way, so that's on the daily basis, and other people will try to do maybe a little bit more severe or aggressive in the like early parts of the week where they're like 13 here, and then they'll go up to like 18 or 2,000 and back down to 13 kind of thing. That's a personal preference for that side. What do you guys have anything to add on like drinking side of things?
Yeah, I mean, if you're tracking, you can build it into the calories. If you know that you're going to be going out one night and you know you have a particular drink that you like to drink, you can just go ahead and like log that into your day. So you already have an idea of what you're approaching. But I think like that is a good way. I mean, if you're just looking at, okay, I'm staying relatively good throughout the week, if you're not having your treats on Monday through Thursday, but then on Friday you need that open to enjoy a little bit more.
Yeah, that's good. That's essentially like that cheat day idea you guys were talking about is like you might have a day where you go up a little bit more, you kind of like change the structure, but then you get back on track and you just stay consistent the rest of the time.
I'd say the one thing you gotta worry about alcohol is just total calories you get out of it. Unless you got something I'm drink.
Who's that guy?
If you actually track your drink like in MyFitnessPal or something, you're gonna notice it's like a 400 calorie drink versus you being able to eat 6 ounces of chicken breast and broccoli. You have this one drink that goes down in 5 minutes. So you gotta make sure you're watching out for that. Mixers, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Try to go to soda water or
Yes.
that tonic water, that kind of stuff where you're reducing calories.
Vodka soda.
Beer,
Yeah.
for guys, as much, I mean, we're just kind of out of luck for the most part. That's what you're going to do.
Yeah. Yeah, the soda water thing or the like vodka soda things are a good tool to use.
I'll seltzer these things too.
Oh, it's true. Those like Trulies and White Claws and stuff. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Any other questions? No? Good. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you guys. Yeah. You guys, if you do have any questions, like anytime we're in a session, you just feel free to ask one of us. We love to talk about this stuff. So. Yeah. Good stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you.